Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na ma tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. He says, وله أسباب أحد وعشرون وهي في الحقيقة أسباب للعجز من استعمال الماء. Right? So basically we have العجز الحسي والعجز الشرعي. That's basically it. Like you're physically incapable of doing it, or you could do it, but it would be haram, right? So, or the Sharia recognizes that you're not obliged to do that, right? So it's either like it's not physically possible, or it's not you're not obliged to do it for some other reason. He says تسعة منها تعاد فيها الصلاة, and then he mentions these things. So فقد الماء, not having water, where is it? بمحل يغلب فيه وجوده حضرا كان أو سفرا لغلبة وجوده فيه, right? Because we said النادر لا حكم له, right? ونسيانه أي الماء, أي الماء, right? You could say both. نسيانه, so the ha is مضاف إليه, right? The forgetting of it, right? So then the نسيان أي الماء, or نسيانه نسيانه أي الماء, because it has the meaning of the مفعول به, أي أنت تنساه, you forget it, right? So نسيانه is in reality a مصدر مضاف to its مفعول به, right? نسيان الإنسان إياه, right? That's what it is, right? Okay, نسيانه أو إضلاله في رحله فيهما لوجود الماء. We did a whole discussion last week. ووضع الساتر من جبيرة أو لصوق فهو أعم من قوله وضع جبيرة على غير طهر. You need to make ghusl, you need to make wudu, and you put on a bandage. So you have to repeat the prayer. بخلاف وضعه على طهر كما في الخف بجامع وجوب المسح بالماء على كل منهما. وكونه الساتر بأعضاء التيمم, it's on the body. So what's happening now is your bandage is on your face, the bandage is on your hand, on your arm. So now you can't make a full tayammum and you can't make a full wudu. Therefore, what do you do then? Right? You're kind of doing neither nor. You're trying your best, but you're kind of doing neither nor. Okay. So therefore you have to repeat. Right? And this is the same scenario. This is called faqid al-tahurain. You can't do anything. So what you do is you just pray as best as you can, and you لحرمة الوقت, and you repeat, right? We did this last week. وكونه يساتر بأعضاء تيمم وإن وضعه على طهر لنقص البدل والمبدل جميعا. You can't do the default, nor you can do the secondary plan. Plan A and plan B both failed. وكون التيمم للصلاة قبل الوقت أي وقتها وإن ظن دخوله لفوات الشرط. So that's a totally different scenario, right? You did the tayammum before the prayer time came in, right? وإن ظن دخوله, even if at the time, so I'm making tayammum right now for dhuhr and I realize I got my time wrong. So I have to do it again. So that's a scenario of repeating, right? وإن ظن دخوله لفوات الشرط وشدة برد وإن خيف من استعمال فيها تلف نفس أو غيرها لندرته لندرة فقد ما يسخن به الماء, right? Oh, I have water, but it's too cold to use. Okay, can't you heat it up? No, it's a bit rare, right? So, إن ذلك عذر نادر إذا وقع لا يدوم فيكون مقتضيا للعادة. وأشار بذلك إلى ضابط وهو العذر، إما عام أي يكثر وقوعه كالسفر والمرض، أو نادر أي يقل وقوعه. والنادر إما أن يكون بحيث إذا وقع دام، بمعنى أنه لا يزول بسرعة كالاستحاضة والسلس، أو لا يدوم بل يزول بسرعة كشدة البرد، فلا تجب العادة في الأولين دون الثالث. وهذا الضابط ينفعك في أبواب كثيرة. Right? This is fiqh that we're talking about, right? So النادر غير نادر. Okay, so can we treat a haja as a darura if it's nadir? No. Okay, well, what if it's nadir yadum? It's rare, but it lasts. So someone is incontinent. Is that rare? It's rare. It's not normal. Doesn't apply to all humans. Okay, does it last? Yes. Right? So here when we're talking about, you say, here's this nebulous principle that kind of doesn't make any sense for a beginner. Al-haja tanzilu manzilat darura. Okay, so you're saying a haja is a darura? Like, that's almost like saying 8 can sometimes be 10. Like, what does that even mean? 8 can sometimes be 10. Like, what? Doesn't make any sense, right? So what you mean is something that's less like a haja when it is widespread, it's am, or nadir and continuous, right? That's another way that you can have al-haja al-multahaqa bil-darura is what? They have this haja which is not universal, but it lasts, right? Like the example of somebody with a baby. You have a baby that's continuing throwing up, and it's difficult to have the baby wash its mouth. So now the baby, having a baby is not it is nadir. It's not like everybody has a baby in the house, right? I guess you can make it if you wanted to. But anyway, let's just say it's nadir. But at yadum, right? It's like every day there's an issue. There's this baby throwing up here, baby throwing up there. You found something sick on you here. The baby is chewing on your clothes after it just threw up, so it makes it all najas, right? So we're going to say, khalas. It's nadir. We're not going to say an-nadir la hukma lahu. We're not going to say it's rare. We're going to say nadir yadum, right? Does that make sense? He says, وَهَذَا الضَّابِطْ يَنْفَعُكَ فِي أَبْوَابٍ كَثِيرَةٍ, right? So all this talking about is when could a haja be treated as darura? Does that make sense? So it could be widespread and recurrent, or it could be rare but lasting. That's useful, right? So key concept, you cannot study qawaid fiqhiyya without studying fiqh, right? It's not possible. You could in principle study usul al-fiqh with some kind of superficial understanding of fiqh, but it's not very good at all. But you can't study qawaid fiqhiyya without fiqh. So qawaid fiqhiyya comes after fiqh, right? Comes after fiqh. It's like grammar comes after the existence of the language. People speak the language, and then you go and find out and then you go and organize their grammar. But you couldn't. Imagine teaching grammar with no examples whatsoever at all. That'd be really weird. Like, so when people speak English, they put the sign at the end that makes it plural, and they'll change the pronunciation of the plural sign depending on the letter before it. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? Like, so you can't look at English grammar without looking at English. Similarly, you can't study qawaid fiqhiyya without looking at fiqh itself, right? That you have examples in your head. Oh yeah, that makes sense. This. We see this. We've seen that. Okay, let's contrast with this. Contrast with another exception. I'm praying and you nudged me, so I turned away from the qibla. Say that's not excused. The prayer is broken. Say why? Nadir la hukma lahu. So it's nadir. It's not normal for people to turn away from the qibla. Wala yadum. It doesn't last. Notice that? It's not like it's going to continue now. Not like I'm in a situation where it's now going to continue. Allahu a'lam. You might come along and say fiat currency. Somebody comes along and says fiat currency is haram. Okay, you say no, it's not haram because look, it's widespread. So yeah, it's a nadir. It's not normal for people in the world to use currencies that have no intrinsic value. It's not normal. So you say, yeah, but it's yadum. It's the last thing there. It's nadir, but yadum. Does that make sense? So that could be a reason why we say, yes, we will accept fiat currency. You're going to have to pay zakat on it. You're going to have to pay, riba will apply to it because yadum, it's lasting. It's not a one-off thing. That today, tonight, you have been asked to pay in monopoly money. Just today. In which case, it doesn't count. Like you, it's not, it's not anything. Because it's nadir and la yadum. It doesn't last. Does that make sense? And then judging these things, obviously, is somewhat relative, right? So is it whether it's nadir or not? We might disagree. How difficult it is, we might disagree. So obviously, we're going to disagree when it comes to the specifics. So again, that's why we need fiqh, right? Because you need to have scenarios and have discussions, etc. Okay, so he says, but is he saying this is while not being home, right? So are we saying that when you're traveling, even it's hard? That's not normal to have things to heat the food. Give me a second. I'm just gonna look this up in قاعدة هضرمية. Let's see. That seems a bit rough, right? Like I'm traveling. Is it normal to travel around with stuff to make fires and stuff? No. Not sure if that's considered normal. The question is, you had water, but it was too cold to use. So, so we say so in a city, obviously that's still like you're at home right now, and it's like, oh, I don't have anything to heat the water up with. That's a bit odd, isn't it? That you live at home and you have nothing to heat water up with. It can happen, right? But that's not so common. So, but is this all for safar or is this not? Right? Are we saying that you're traveling and you don't have anything to heat the water up with? That's isn't that a bit odd? To say that's not a it's not an order. That's quite isn't it quite common? Here it says ويقضي إذا تيمم للبرد أو تيمم لفقد الماء في الحضر. So where's that? So this is in مقدة هضرمية. Okay, so it says one repeats the prayer if you did it because it's cold, or because you made tayammum of the absence of water في الحضر while at home. Here he specifically mentions بعشن ولو في السفر. Yeah. So basically, they're saying normal travelers have things to heat water up with. You're weird. That's not normal. You ran away from prison, you had nothing with you. Okay, it's possible. It's not normal though. Right. ولو في السفر, but okay. One second, please. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So notice I go to Bushra. Why did I go to Bushra? Can you see in my Q&A, I'm always using Bushra Kareem. Like notice here, he doesn't say ولو في السفر, right? Uh, and even in the Hashia, Doesn't explain that. It's not 100% clear, right? So Bushra Kareem is really reliable and really useful. Like it's a real bushra for the Kareem, you know. Fath al-Mu'in and the I'anat al-Talibin and Nail al-Raja, Bushra Kareem. This is like all you need basically. Everything else is almost fadl. Like this book is almost extra. I never ever use this book ever. I never use this hashia. Bushra Kareem references this hashia, right? Sharqawi, but I never use this. Right? But Bushra Kareem, Muqaddah Daramiyya and Bushra Kareem, this is like really, really important. Fath al-Mu'in. So many times I found things in Fath al-Mu'in. You don't find somewhere else. Like it's there very clearly explained, whatever it is. It's a really important book. Okay, وإن خيف من استعمال فيها تلف نفس أو غيرها لندرة فقد ما يسخن به الماء. Right? It's not normal not to have anything to heat water up with. وعصيان بسفر. Right? That you're traveling, but that you're sinful by traveling, not sinful في سفر. Okay? كإباق. Okay? كإباق. So ibaq is you are a runaway slave. لأن عدم وجود الإعادة رخصة فلا تناط بالمعصية. Right? So you ran away, you're in the middle of the desert and there's no water. Why do you have no water? Oh, because you ran away. Is that a reason that the Sharia recognizes? No, it was sinful. Right? So therefore it doesn't count. وتنجس بدون إذن بدون وتنجس بدن بغير معفو عنه. Okay. So this issue here is related to النهي يقتضي الفساد, right? So the fact that you are prohibited from running away, that means that the Sharia has no i'tidad, does not recognize the fact you're traveling. So you're traveling physically, not traveling shara'an. So you can't join, you can't shorten, the rukhsas of traveling don't apply to you. Right? Same thing with a woman traveling by herself, right? For no reason. Unless it's a darura or a haja shadida, right? Or something like that, She can't travel by herself, meaning she cannot leave her city in the Shafi school, right? So her brother takes her to college. She's at college, that's fine. He stays there. Her dad comes and picks her up. Commuting to work in the Shafi school. Can a woman commute to work in the Shafi school? Right. So we say, does she have somebody? So even if it's Musafir al-Qasr, she can't leave the city. Okay, she cannot leave the city, Musafir al-Qasr. Right. So, but can she commute to work? We're going to say, does she need to work? So yeah. Does she have a job in her city? No. Okay, then go. It's fine. You can do that. Right. So a woman so even when you say need to work, it's not the obligation of her father to support her, right? She's reached puberty. She's old enough to work. Khalas, he's not obliged to support her anymore. Right? So she's 18 now. Her dad might be supporting, may not be so, but that's not but it's her obligation unless she has savings, it's her obligation to make her own money, and so she can travel for those reasons, right? Because that's considered the darura of a job. But if she can work in her own city or work at home, then she'd have to do that. That's the Shafi school. وتنجس I don't know where the sentence goes back now. تنجس بدن بغير معفو عنه كدم كثير وإن عجز عن إزالته لفقد الماء أو لخوف ضرر لأنه نادر لا يدوم. Same thing. نادر لا يدوم. So you have vomit all over you. Okay, well, I don't have any water, do I? So I'm supposed to wash it off. right? How to make tayammum, right? Nadir la yadum. It's not normal, right? Had it been normal, it would be excused to begin with, but it's not. Okay, so nadir la yadum. Why are you biting me? Look at these two kittens. I'm like one of them was trying to bite my clothes. Um, so here we have an issue though, is uh what do you do now? So here the way he's phrasing it is that if you have najasa on you, so he's trying to say that if you make tayammum right now, if you make tayammum right now, it's gonna have you're gonna have to you pray, you have to repeat it. So it's here he says وتنجس بدن أي وجوب الإعادة فيه لبطلان التيمم إذ يشترط في صحته تقدم إزالة النجاسة, right? So the tayammum aslan is not valid, right? So he says here, so he says, let's read the whole thing here, 1 second. بخلاف ما يعفى عن نعم إن كان على محل التيمم وجب الإعادة لعدم وصول التراب إلى المحل. So he says here, so he says والواو للحال وإن عجز, where is it? وإن إن عجز عن إزالته لفقد الماء. So he says here, um, لأنه إذا لم يعجز لم يصح تيمم إجماعا. أما عند العجز, okay, I'm not able to remove the najasa, فيصح عند ابن حجر ولا يصح عند ميم راء بل يصلي فاقد الطهورين. وبعيد كما سيأتي فلا فرق عنده بين العجز وعدمه في بطلان التيمم. Not saying ويعيد عفوا, not بعيد ويعيد. Okay, so what's Ibn Hajar saying? Ibn Hajar saying is, are you able to remove the najasa? No. Okay, don't worry about it then, right? فيصح, you are actually making tayammum, right? You're actually making tayammum. وعند محمد رملي بل يصلي فاقد الطهورين. You're not even making tayammum أصلا. You're just praying in the way that you would pray if you couldn't, because you can't make tayammum because you haven't removed the filth. So if you have filth on you, you can't make tayammum. Ibn Hajar says if you can't if you don't remove the filth, you can't make tayammum. But if you can't remove the filth, it's excused. Okay. Now, useful book again. Useful book again is throughout our books. We're always going to say Ibn Hajar says this, Ramli says this. Obviously, you can go back to Nihaya and go back to the what's it called? Go back to the Nihaya and go back to um, the Tuhfa. But useful book is Fathul Ali. Okay, Fathul Ali. So I'm trying to find out like what's this masala again? I don't quite get it. And I go there and it's going to explain the whole thing, right? And particularly with the sharh of Dr. Hassan Hito's daughter, Shifa Hito, right? She's going through the whole shebang. Right? What's the discussion, right? So it's a useful book, right? Fathul Ali. It's like a nice angle to go things like, okay, what's the debate here between Ibn Hajar and Ramli? What are they talking about? And you're just coming straight to those points of debate. And there's another book as well, منهل النضاح, something بين الأشياء. So منهل النضاح, النضاح is اختلاف between Ibn Hajar, Ramli, and Khatib. Right, it's a smaller book with less commentary. Okay. Does that make sense? So according to Ibn Hajar, you're only going to make tayammum because you can't make tayammum because you got najasa on you. According to Ibn Hajar, make tayammum anyway. Um, Make sense? Ammar, Ahmed. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Says نعم إن كان على محل التيمم وجب الإعادة. So now you have najasa, you have dried vomit on your arm. You have nothing to remove it with. Says نعم إن كان على محل التيمم وجبت الإعادة لعدم وصول التراب إلى المحل. So to begin with, you need to make tayammum then. Because now that's just because there's a barrier there. واثنى عشر منها لا تعاد فيها. Okay, there's 12 then. You do not repeat the prayer. فقط الماء بمحل لا يغلب فيه وجوده. Right? ولو بحضر. Right? والحاجة إليه ولو في المآل. Right? You're on a 14-day trip to the desert. It may extend to 15 days. You have 16 to 17 days of water. It's quite dangerous. So quite likelihood you're going to need this water, so be careful, right? لشربه, you need it to drink. أو بيعه للمؤونة, I need to sell it. You know that I have enough water. I have enough water for a month, but I have to sell some of this water in order to get food or to get fuel to get the trip or whatever it is. Right. أي مؤونة من عليه مؤونته, supporting those he has to support. سواء كان المحتاج إلى ذلك المالك سواء كان المحتاج إلى ذلك المالك أم أحد رفقته ولو حيوانا محترما. I'm reading this wrong. مالك سواء أكان المحتاج إلى ذلك here it says أي الماء. So whether it's the owner of the water or one of the people with him. So just even if he's not the owner. ولو حيوانا محترما. In fact, even if it's just any animal that doesn't deserve to die. That's what we're saying. Yeah. Yeah. So any animal that doesn't deserve to die. There's no ihtiram for it. So what's an animal that doesn't deserve to die or a living thing that doesn't deserve to die? He says, ما لم يحرم قتله كالمرتد. So this person has apostated and been judged in court as an apostate. This person has committed zina and judged in court as a zani. He was about to be executed, then he ran away. He left the prayer and he was about to execute it, then he ran away. والكلب العقور, a vicious dog. Okay? A pig. You're traveling with a pig. Do you give your water to the pig or do you make wudu? Right? You make wudu. as opposed to a normal dog or a cat or your horse, whatever, you have to keep them alive. والكلب ثلاثة أقسام عقور عقور وهذا الاختلاف في عدم احترامه وندب قتله وما فيه نفع من اصطياد أو حراسة وهذا لا خلاف في عدم احترامه وندب قتله. Right? So here's this vicious dog. It's not, you don't give it water, it doesn't have ihtiram, and it's sunnah to kill it. وما فيه نفع من اصطياد أو حراسة وهذا لا خلاف في احترامه. So here's a dog that is being used for hunting or for guarding. It's a sacred dog, right? وحرمة قتله وما لا نفع فيه ولا ضرر. So there's a dog that is neither nor. ومعتمد الرمل فيه أنه محترم فيحرم قتله. Right? ولمعتمد ولمعتمد أن غير محترم من الآدمي فيه تفصيل إن كان قادرا على التوبة كتارك الصلاة ومرتد لم يجوز له شرب الماء ونحو. والمحترم. There's an alif that's dropped here. والمعتمد. Yeah. Thank you. والمعتمد أن غير المحترم من الآدمي فيه تفصيل إن كان قادرا على التوبة كتارك الصلاة أو المرتد لم يجوز له شرب الماء. So you can change your mind. وإن احتاجه في إنقاذه في إنقاذ روحه من العطش لتعينه للطهر به مع قدرته على الخروج من المعصية وإن لم يقدر عليها كالزاني المحصن جاز له التيمم وشرب الماء للعطش قرره شيخنا الحفني. Right. So the zani cannot change. خلاص, you've been sentenced to death. There's no way out of this. Right. So presumably this is with the case of the person, a runaway person who is supposed to be executed for not praying. Okay, then he can just come back and say, I'll pray right now. So he can actually change the situation. Right. Okay. خير. وتعبيري هنا وفيما يأتي بالمؤونة أعم من تعبيري بالنفقة. So مؤونة and نفقة not quite the same. وظاهر أن احتياجه لبيعه لدينه كاحتياجه لبيعه لمؤونته. Right, and it's obvious that if he needs to sell the water in order to pay for his debts, it's the same as in order to it's the same in order to pay for his nafaqa. But then here it says لدينه أي ولو مؤجلا إن كان يحل قبل وصوله. So he has a debt that will due إن كان يحل, that if it will be due قبل وصوله محلا يصير فيه غنيا سواء كان ذلك الدين متعلقا بذمته أو بعين من أعيان ماله. Okay, so he is not mentioning the khilaf, but there's khilaf here between Ibn Hajar probably on this issue about the I believe there's a khilaf here, if I remember, on whether it's if it's mu'ajjal. So here it's saying ولو مؤجل إن كان يحل قبل وصوله محلا يصير فيها غنيا. Right, so it's going to be due, even if it's not due right now, it's going to be due before you get to a place where you're going to have money to pay it. So now you're allowed to sell that for that reason. Okay. وأل وأن لا يجده إلا بثمن وقد عجز عنه. So you can there's water and you can buy it, but I don't have the money to buy it. أو قدر عليه لكنه احتاج إلى المؤونة. He has the money to buy the water to make wudu, but he needs that money to eat and to support his family. أو لدينه, or for his debt. Right? So you need to pay off your debt. Okay. أو وجد الماء لا يباع إلا بأكثر من ثمنه. So you find it's being sold for more than its price. في ذلك الآن في تلك الحالة ولو بما يتغابن بمثله عادة, even if it's for amount. So here this is about حفظ المال, right? So normally in the middle of the desert you would buy a liter for $20. It's very expensive. He's selling it for $40 or $25, right? So in this place, it's expensive. That's normal price, right? That's how much it costs in this place at this time of the year, right? But it's even more than that. Okay. ولو بما يتغابن بمثله, something that's kind of, it's often overlooked as a small price. لأن الماء بدل متيسر فلا يؤدي ذلك إلى الإخلال بمقصود الشارع من الإتيان بالطهر بخلاف نظيره في تصرف الوكيل. Okay. أو حال بينهما, أي بينه وبين الماء عدو من سبع أو غيره, right? Physically can't get there because there's an enemy there or some kind of animal. Like right now I'm being attacked by 2 kittens. Very dangerous individuals. They're 3 weeks old. They're sitting here on my lap. ولم يجد ما أو لم يجد ما يستسقي به من دلو وحبل وغيرهما, أو خاف من استعماله تلفا لنفسه أو لغيرها, himself or somebody else or his body or faculty, أو خاف منه بطء برء, right? You will slow down the period of time it takes to recover. أو أو زيادة مرض أو حصول, right? That you're going to become more sick. أو حصول شين فاحش بعضو ظاهر, right? So we compare that to the matan before. It wasn't that daqiq, and it said qawlain. It's like, okay, what about so it's like, okay, what about a remember in the matan before it said something like, okay, what if it would leave a mark? Oh, there's 2 opinions. So what is the right opinion and what is the details of it? So now as the school develops, we get a clearer picture. What is the correct position and what are the criterion for each position, right? And this helps us, right? It helps us navigate and understand why we would not give fatwa on a position outside of the form of dhahib, right? This process, I'm going from Ibn Mahamili to Zakaria Ansari. What, how many years? 400 years, 500 years, something like that. Maybe less than that. And in that time, I'm getting clarity of what I mean and which is the right position. Do we have that with Ibn Abbas? No. Do we have that with Ata ibn Rabah? No. Do we have that with Ishaq ibn Rahaway? No. So this is why. So what's wrong with not following the form of dhahib? One of the reasons is you don't even know what's going on. I don't know what the position is. I don't know what's the relied upon position, and I don't know what's the relied upon position. I don't know what you mean by that. Okay, and another very important. I don't think iqrar. Yeah, so with an iqrar murabit of haqqullah, you can go back on it. As far as I know. So that's not haqq adami. So he can go back on it, wallahu a'lam. And I don't think that really happens. Do they get him to do iqrar? Like do iqrar that I didn't pray. I don't think that's really not a real thing that you do, wallahu a'lam. For zina, good point. Zina. Yeah, so the zina, that was the point. So for zina, if it was iqrar shuhud, you can't go back on it. That was the point he was making in the hashia. So for the tarika salah, you could go back on it. So if he so 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 you could give him water if he goes back, if he prays or whatever it is. But with the zani, you couldn't, because there's no way he has to be killed regardless, even if they make tawbah, even if whatever, it doesn't matter. Right? So their life is not sacred regardless.
So does it mean like any hudud that leads to the death, for example, if you
Same
kill
thing.
somebody?
Yeah. No, so that's different. Killing somebody is not a had punishment. So killing somebody is qisas. So I killed you. Your dad has a right for me to be killed. Okay, I run away. Your dad might forgive me. And that's okay, khalas, let him go. So that's not a had punishment, right? Because had punishment, there's no way out. Whereas if somebody could do afu, khalas, right? It's different. Okay, so here, what do we learn? وَالشَّيْءٌ فَاحِشٌ بِعُضْوٍ ظَاهِرٍ, right? So someone's gonna say, oh, but what if they left a mark? Yes. Okay, what kind of mark? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And they're gonna define what kind of mark. So I know, for example, the relied upon position is it's going to be on the face and things like that. So I remember even Sheikh Amjad saying, well, what about a woman? A woman, she says every single time I make ghusl or have a shower, I get this line on my back, big, huge line on my back. And every single time I put water there, it becomes darker and darker and darker. Okay? So the doctor says, oh yeah, don't put water there. So now is she obliged to, when she makes ghusl, is she obliged to wash her back? The answer is yes. Why? Because it's not zahir, right? But that's it could be for a man. It might not be a big deal to have a mark on his back. For a woman, it might be a big deal to have a mark on his back, right? It's different. So I remember him saying, he was kind of saying that, that's a bit hardcore. That we should follow that weaker position. But some have suggested that it's not just face and hands like that. Guy's biting me. Okay, you're good. Sorry. You're now a fitna, distracting me from my class. You're a fitna too. Okay, so the hashia, then he says, أي أنا مستكره في تغير لون ونح ها ونحول making you thin أو استحشاف. I don't know what that is. استحشاف. It makes you dry. وثغرة تبقى, and some kind of spot that would stay. ولحمة تزيد, some kind of lump that would increase. والظاهر ما يبدو عند المهنة غالبا كالوجه واليدين. Okay, that's what we mean by your face and your two arms. Okay, so then he says here, وخرج بالفاحش اليسير كقليل سواد وبالظاهر الفاحش في الباطن right? So it says batin A, وَلَوْ فِي رَقِيقٍ عَلَى الْمُعْتَمَدِ, right? So now there's a slave, okay? There's a slave who is going to have a big mark on his body, on her body. إِذِ الْخُسْرَانُ فِي قِيمَتِهِ غير محقق, right? So we're not sure will he or she actually go down in price. بخلاف الخسران في الزيادة على الثمن مثل فإنه محقق فحصل الفرق والمراد بالباطن ما يستر بالثوب, right? So that's a bit difficult, right? So again, just put a footnote and say there's a bahth somewhere, maybe in the Hawashi al-Tuhfa, maybe in Bughyatul Mustarshirin, Allahu A'lam. Right? General observation, many of the late Yemenis have more rukhas and more easygoing than others. Wallahu A'lam. فلا أثر لخوف ذلك ويعتمد في الخوف قول عدل في الرواية وقيل يشترط اثنان, right? So one person who is reliable says that that's probably going to happen. وقيل يشترط اثنان وزيادة المرض حدوثه المفهوم بالأولى, right? Causing sickness or increasing sickness, same thing. Okay, so basically any of these things are excuses from tayammum, and there's other excuses as well. Okay, so now he's going to go through furuduhu khamsa. Okay, let's go and read that from the matan. Okay, everything's clear so far? It says باب معرفة عمل التيمم والتيمم يشتمل على 5 أشياء فرض وسنة وأدب وكراهية وشرط فأما الفرض ف7 أشياء طلب الماء والقصد إلى نقل التراب والنية ومسح جميع الوجه ومسح اليدين مع المرفقين والترتيب والتتابع في أحد القولين. Right, so the same thing, the qadim is that there's tatabu' in what's it called? In wudu, so there should be tatabu' in muwala in tayammum. Right, so he's going to say here 9. وهو القول القديم, right? Same discussion basically. So طلب الماء والقصد إلى نقل التراب, that you actually intentionally move. So basically the niyyah is going to continue from when you start to moving it to the face, right? ومسح جميع الوجه, etc. Right? وأما السنة, let's go back to that's basically our arkan there. So it says فروضه 5 نقل التراب ولو من وجه أو يد لقوله تعالى فتيمموا صعيدا أي اقصدوه بأن تنقلوه, that you actually move it. فلو سفته ريح عليه فردده أو نوى أو وقف بمهب ريح ناويا بوقوفه التيمم فلما أصابه التراب مسح بيديه لم يكفي. Right, so is it sufficient that you intended when the dust was blown into your face? No, it's not. So your intention is there from touching to the face, right? So it's different to wudu. Wudu is washing your face. This is seeking the thing. So part of it is the moving, right? So I'm intending from the time of touching that thing to my face. الانتفاء النقل المحض, because there's no actual moving. لقصد فيهما. وعبرت بالنقل لا بالقصد. I said moving and not intending. وإن عبر به الأصل لقول المحرر والمنهاج إن النقل ركن والقصد شرط مع أن القصد كما قال الرافعي داخل في النقل الواجب, right? قارن النية به. So it's just basically like how we're going to organize this. The point is, it's different to wudu. You actually have to so getting the water to your face is not part of wudu, right? So he says, والقصد, he says, القصد تراب لأجل التحويل, in order to move it. وأما قصد العضو فلا يشترط, right? So again, there's some subtleties there, but the point is, it's part of it. It's not the same. والنية كأن ينوي استباحة صلاة أو مسح المصحف. So you're making it saying, oh Allah, I ask you to make it permissible for me to pray. Oh Allah, I ask you to make it permissible for me to touch the mushaf. أو سجدة تلاوة. لا رفع الحدث. You can say, oh Allah, I'm making intention to remove hadath. لأن التيمم لا يرفعه. It doesn't do that. How do I know that? Because if I made tayammum and I prayed and then it rained, I wouldn't have tayammum anymore. So therefore, it's not called raf al hadath. It's just a temporary. So it's like a visa, right? لأن التيمم لا يرفعه ولا فرض التيمم لأن التيمم طهارة ضرورة. It's not a real thing, right? ولا يصلح أن يكون مقصودا. It's not something in and of itself. ولهذا لا يسن تجديده. It's not something you repeat as a sunnah. بخلاف الوضوء. For each prayer, you can sunnah to repeat wudu. You don't do that for tayammum. فإن أراد صلاة فرض فلا بد من نية استباحة فرض صلاة. Right? كما يجب قرن نية بالنقل يجب استدامته إلى مسح شيء من الوجه. Right, so he says here يجب استدامته إلى مسح. The niyyah has to last while wiping the face. He says مقتضاه أنه يجب استحضارها عند النقل, touching the floor, touching the whatever you think, والمسح وما بينهما. That's what you're saying. You're saying that I have to have this continual intention. He says وليس كذلك بل الواجب اقترانها بالنقل والمسح فقط. So at the time when I'm getting the earth to my hand or the dust to my hand, I intended to intentionally do this undo my face, as opposed to وإن عزبت بينهما, even if it's not there during the whole time in the middle. Okay, makes sense. You don't have to have istidama throughout the whole time. So here it says يجب استدامتها إلى مسح, i.e. وجودها. It has to be there. It has to be when you're getting the dust and when you're doing the face, not the whole time. ومسح الوجه ومسح اليدين مع المرفقين بالتراب لآية التيمم والترتيب بينهما كما في الوضوء. And then he says وسننه. Okay. So here's something. What if you intended? So I'm intending to pray dhuhr and then I missed dhuhr. Can I pray asr with that tayammum? Yes, you can. If dhuhr has come in and I made tayammum to pray dhuhr, can I do my fard tawaf? Yes, you can. Right. So that's fine, but you can only do one fard thing. Right? And if you make wudu in order to make it permissible to do one sunnah thing, then you can do as many sunnah things you want, as many sunnah tawafs, as many sunnah fard not prayers, right? If you make your intention just to recite Quran, oh Allah, I'm making it permissible for me to sit in the masjid. Then you can sit in the masjid, but you can't pray. You can't do tawaf. So you have the higher level, which is one fard, second level, which is any number of sunnahs, And then third level is other things that require, what's it called? Excuse me. Other things that require wudu. Excuse me. It is what a valid niyyah. Oh Allah, I'm making it permissible to sit in a masjid, i.e. I'm in janaba, yes. To recite Quran, no. To hold the mushaf, yes. Did I say recite Quran? Yeah, so Allah, yeah, maybe I'm falling asleep, so maybe I missed that. I said that. But the point is something, you mean intention for something that actually requires wudu, right? But it's a bit like this, okay? Muhammad Hashir submits he's trying to get a visa. For what? To visit, he submits it to the United States in order to visit Germany. Like, what are they supposed to do with it? You know? Or right? Like, I mean, the United States of America have no problem with Muhammad Hashir, the citizen of Kenya, visiting Germany. What do you want? So that doesn't do anything, right? That doesn't actually do anything because you don't need our permission to visit Germany. Go and ask them. I don't know. Right? Or to watch, he submits a visa in order to watch American TV. It's like you can watch American TV without without the visa. So it doesn't mean anything, right? But he's on a student visa, right? This is how we see it as a visa. You're not an American citizen, you don't have a green card, right? So wudu is like a green card, right? Okay, go ahead.
Sheikh,
Yes.
in terms of the naql turab, like in case of somebody who is like disabled and needs help, for example, for normal wudu, like is it required that they do the naql themselves, or like somebody can assist in that?
I don't know exactly how it happened. So
Somebody, for example, like has
yeah, no. So I understand.
is
I understand the situation. So let's imagine, for example, I can't move
yeah.
my arms. I can't get up. So there's a dusty wall that I'm going to touch. So now I'm going to ask you to. Oh, it could be like this. You get the dust to me, and I put my face towards it. So you see the difference was the wind blew into my face, and I intended it when it hit my face, as opposed to I put my face towards your dusty hand. That's different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they couldn't move at all, I don't know how it would work. So they're able to pray because they pray without moving, but they can't move their neck, they can't move their arm, they can't move their body. I don't know exactly what it would work because they have to do something, right? Wallahu a'lam. Okay, so then it says وَسُنَنُهُ. Let's go back to our matan. So it says things وأما السنن فخمسة أشياء التسمية ومسح جميع الوجه بضربة واحدة ومسح اليدين بضربة واحدة ونفض اليدين بعد استعمال عند الضربة الأولى والبداءة باليمنى. Right, to knock your hands together. That's a nafd. Right. So التسمية أوله ولو جنوبا. So you say بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم even though you're in janaba. أو حائضا كما في الوضوء. Okay. ونفض اليدين ونفخهما بعد الضرب من من الغبار إن كثر للاتباع رواه الشيخاني ولئلا تتشوه الخلقة، وقولي أو نفخهما من زيادتي. Right, you knock them together or you blow them. So the point is trying to get off excess dust. أي فلا يبقى منه إلا قدر الحاجة ولو كان مسافرا. Something here وsomething غبار خفيف لم يكلف نفطه بل يصح عليه لأنه غير حائل، بخلاف ما لو كان كثيفا فإنه يكلف ذلك. Okay, that's something else. والتيامن أي بأن يمسح يده اليمنى قبل اليسرى، والتوجه للقبلة تفيس قبلة، وابتداء مسح الوجه من أعلاه، واليدين من أصابع same thing as وضوء كما في الوضوء، وغيرها من زيادة كالموالاة بين مسحي الرأس واليدين، وتفريق أصابعه في كل ضربة وتحليلها. Open your fingers up, put your fingers between your fingers. Okay, إن فرق في الضربتين أو في الثانية فقط وإلا وجب. Right, so if at some other time you open your fingers and you make sure that you wipe those fingers, then it's fine. But otherwise, if you didn't do that, it would be obligatory, right? At some point it has to be obligatory. And he says, وَمَكْرُهَاتُهُ Okay, let's go back to the matan. Here mentions makruhat, does mention, okay, mentions all these things. So notice how adab became sunnah, right? So he has a different term here for sunnah and adab. Whereas also for the usuliyin, same thing, right? If it's something that's recommended to do, then it's sunnah, khalas. Doesn't matter how recommended it is. Right, so he has this interesting distinction between adab, and I think it's quite a useful distinction in reality. وأما الكراهة فشيئان: استعمال التراب الكثير والزيادة في كل عضو على مسحة واحدة، وأما الشرط فشيء واحد وهو أن يكون التراب مطلقا. Excuse me. So ومكروهه تكثير التراب وتكرير المسح repeating the wiping لكل عضو لمخالفته للأخبار الدالة على عدم ذلك، وشرطه 15: ضربة للوجه وضربة لليدين مع المرفقين، كما رواه كذلك الحاكم وهو موقوف على ابن عمر، ولا بد من ضربتين وإن أمكن التيمم بضربة بخرقة أو نحوها، والمراد بالضرب النقل. We're saying hitting, we're meaning moving twice. So it's recommended to do one for the face, one for the arms, but there has to be at least 2 strikes. That's the point. Two instances of moving dust. وكون التراب طهورا, that the water, that the air, that the earth be pure and purifying. غير مستعمل واستعمل منه ما بقي بعضو أو تناثر منه، ولو رفع إحدى يديه من الأخرى قبل ولو رفع إحدى يديه عن الأخرى قبل استيعابها, wiping the whole thing, ثم أراد أن يعيدها للاستيعاب, to cover the whole thing, جاز في الأصح لأن المستعمل هو الباقي بالممسوحة، أما الباقي بالماسحة في حكم التراب الذي يضرب عليه مرتين فلا يكون مستعملا بالنسبة للمموحة. المموحة الممسوحة. بالنسبة الممسوحة. There we go. So the point is what? It's going to be pure, purifying earth. It can't be used. So you see, here's a scenario. What if you touched it, but you didn't completely touch your whole hand on the floor? It's fine. Just go back again, right? It doesn't make the hair the dust on your hand used. Right? Okay, guys, just give me 1 minute, please. I'm about to fall asleep. But just give me 2 minutes, okay? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My apologies. Okay. So it says, وَلَوْ رَفَعَ إِحْدَى يَدَيْهِ عَنِ الْأُخْرَى قبل استيعابها ثم أراد أن يعيدها للاستيعاب. You wanted to get your whole hand covered in dust, okay? But you didn't. So then you put it back. جاز في الأصح لأن المستعمل هو الباقي بالممسوحة. What is left on the limb that is wiped, not what is left on the limb that is wiping. ففي الحكم التراب الذي يضرب عليه اليد مرتين فلا يكون مستعملا بالنسبة للممسوحة وكونه غير مخلوط بنحو زعفران. It's not mixed with anything. من المخالطات, things that mix with them. وإن قل. Why? لمنعه وصول التراب. كثافته, because it's right, because it's just the nature of it. So basically, when you have, let's say it's you had some earth mixed with flour, mixed with something other than earth, okay, and then you now wipe with it. You don't know what's touching the what's touching you, what's not. But so it doesn't that doesn't count. It's got to be basically earth. Yeah. Okay. لمنعه وصول التراب لكثافته إلى العضو, right? Because it would stop at these things. وطالب الماء, and that you have to look for water beforehand. فإن لم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا. You have to do طلب الماء. ولا بما دونه. ها؟ ولو بمأذونه عفوا. Not بما دونه, بمأذونه. Right? So you tell your slave, you tell your friend, hey, go and look for water, right? لقوله تعالى فإن لم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا ولا يقال لم يجد إلا بعد الطلب ولأن التيمم طهورة ضرورة ولا ضرورة مع إمكانها بالماء. Right? So I have an emergency passport. You can't just get an emergency passport for no reason. What's the reason? إلا في تيمم مريض. Obviously you weren't doing تيمم for the lack of water. فلا يجب فيه طلب لأن تيممه لمرضه لا لفقد الماء وما في معناه الخائف من برد ونحوه. Right? وفي تيمم متيقن الفقد. I know 100% there is no water. أي فقد الماء حسا وشرعا. There is no water at all, or there's no way we can get to it. كحيلولة سبع. Like I know there's water, but I know there's a lion outside. I can't get out of this tent. I can't get out of this car. If I get out of the car, I'm going to get eaten by this lion. right? So I know there's water there. It's not an issue about that. فلا يجب فيه طلب إذ لا فائدة فيه. وإن توهمه طلبه بما توهم فيه من رحله ورفقته ويستوعبهم بالطلب, right? So in توهمه, if it's possible, in principle possible, not likely, but in principle possible, right? وإن توهمه, there's some chance. Then for your rahl, on your horse, in your bags, in your car, the truck behind you, the group with you, ويستوعبهم بالطلب. Hey, does anyone have any water? Nobody? On the radio, whatever it is. إلا أن يضيق وقت الصلاة, unless there's no time left. So it says أي بحيث لا يبقى إلا ما يسع تلك صلاة, وهو استثناء من يستوعبهم أو من طلبه. والأقرب الأول, right? It's not from الطلب, it's from who he has to ask. فإن ضاق بأن لم يبقى إلا ما يسعها تيمم بلا طلب واستيعاب. Huh? So he says وهو استثناء من استثناء من يستوعبهم أو من طلبه. من يستوعبهم أو من طلبه. وإلا والأقرب الأول. فإن ضاق, now the problem is he explains it in two different ways. So he says it means who you ask, not whether you search or not. And then he says فإن ضاق, there's no time left to pray. بإن لم يبقى إلا ما يسعها, there's only 2 minutes left. تيمم بلا طلب واستيعاب. Right? That's funny, but he just said the أقرب is not the case. Anyway. بلا طلب واستيعاب وصلى لحرمة الوقت ولا إعادة إن كان بمحل يغلب فيه الفقد. Right? So that's an exception there. Okie dokie. So then he says ثم نظر حواليه إن كان بمستو, you're in a flat place من الأرض, وإلا تردد إن لم يخف على نفس أو عرض. So now, so you can look around if it's flat place, or you got to go around. If it's not flat, you got to go around. تردد, on the condition you not fear for yourself or fear for your wealth. وإن قل, I might leave and somebody steals my small bag. أو اختصاص, my dog, right? Or the dung that I'm carrying with me. أو انقطاع عن الرفقة, if I go out to look for it, I'm gonna lose my group. أو خروج وقت, أو خروج وقت, the prayer time is going to end. إلى حد يلحقه فيه غوث رفقته مع تشاغلهم بأشغالهم و و وتفاوضهم. Wow, that's a wow. وتفاوضهم في أقوالهم. Right? So assuming that you're not on a flat plane, you can see things, and assuming that there could be something like it goes up and down, so you have to walk around, and assuming that it's going to be safe, and assuming you're not going to that your property is going to be safe, and other people will be safe, and no one's going to leave without you, then you have to go around to the kind of distance, which is called hadd al-ghawth, which is the distance that people would shout at, right? If people were doing something, two people are putting up a tent, how far could you go away for them to shout at them? That kind of distance, right? So, um, ويسمى حد الغوث وضابطه وضبط بغلوة, I believe the word is the كسرة. غلوة سهم, how far an arrow would go. وغاية ما يصل إليه السهم المرمي وبقدر ما ينظره بصر معتدل مع رؤية أشخاصه something, right? So maybe half a mile or something like that, right? So the first scenario is it's merely possible, right? You just look around you. Second scenario is it's possible. Then you have to go to this kind of distance, about half a mile, approximately. فإن لم يجد تيمم. Okay? So extremely unlikely, just around you. Possible, a bit further, about half a mile. فلو علم ماء يصله المسافر لحاجته كاحتطاب. Right? So now I know there's water. I know there's water. There's a river. Okay, how far is that river? It's as far as a traveler would normally go to get the things on a journey. Right? So where are they getting this definition from? Right? They are trying to define haja. Right? The haja that would be treated as darura. So here in tayammum, we're talking about darura, right? Like, oh, I would die if I made wudu tayammum. I'd get sick if I make tayammum. I'd lose my money if I make tayammum, right? So now these are all estimations. Okay? So you're traveling. I know that there's water. How far am I obliged to go and get that water then? Say, well, what's normal? What's normal distances that people would travel away from their camp if they were traveling? Okay, this kind of distance. So it says, فلو علم ماء يصله, I think it's saying يصله المسافر لحاجته كاحتطاب, right? Someone's going to go quickly hunt for like some small animals. You're going to quickly go and get some woods. وهو فوق حد الغوث السابق وجب قصده, you have to go and get it. إلا إن خاف على مرمر, unless you're scared, right? So this is now approximately about 5 kilometers, about 3 miles, right? See if he gives an estimation here. حد القرب ضابطه نصف فرسخ, أي ميل ونصف بإدخال حد الغوث فيه, وبسير الأثقال 11 درجة وربع, كمن الأشرفية إلى باب القرافة الكبرى. So what is it? فرسخ, so ضبط بنصف فرسخ. نصف فرسخ. 1 second, I have this here. I have my نصف فرسخ. Where was my measurements of time? I have a little table. Here we go. 1 second. So what farsakh, this is in my minhaj, it has these the end have these mawazin and different distances. It has a farsakh as as 11 kilometers, so about 6 kilometers. 5 to 6 kilometers, which is about 3 miles, right? So that's as far as you have to go. So there's a river 3 miles away from camp. Do we have to go and get the water? Yes, we do. Why? That's normal distance that people, when they're traveling, do. You set up camp and you go and get some wood. You set up camp and you go and do something. 3 miles is an hour's walk, right? So that's an estimation. So we have to understand there's a game that they're playing here. They're trying to say, we understand there's darura, we understand there's haja. Give me an estimation of what's of that haja then. So you have to walk more for more than an hour. Yeah, that's too far, bro. That's not normal, right? Walking for more than an hour. But it's just an estimation. So they've made up these things, right? They've made up these definitions. Does that make sense? As a judgment of there's this nebulous thing called difficulty. There's specific examples of difficulty. You would have to do this, you wouldn't have to do this, you would have to do this, you wouldn't have to do this, and then they're just basing it on that. Okay? Make sense? So we shouldn't get tied down with the specifics. It's important to have the specifics in mind, but that's not the message, right? The point is, I'm trying to estimate how much the Sharia is pushing me. And when you get to the specifics, it's going to be like that, right? Does that make sense? So he says, والحاصل أن الأحوال التي ذكرها المصنف ثلاثة تيقن فقد الماء وتوهم الماء في حد الغوث وعلمه وعلمه something في حد القرب, right? وذكر الحالة لحالة التوهم ثلاث أحوال. So توهم, possible, right? أحوال الطلب ثم نظر, ثلاث أحوال: الطلب ثم النظر ثم التردد وترك الحالة الرابعة وهي كون الماء في حد البعد لما مر. والأحوال أربعة وقد علمت حكمها وخرج بالعلم في حد القرب ما لو توهمه فيه فإنه لا يجب عليه طلبه منه مطلقا. Right. So if you know, you got to go about 3 miles. If it's possible and there's no safety, there's nothing wrong. You have to look around you. If you know that it doesn't exist at all, then you don't have to do anything, right? Or you're not even making tayammum for lack of water. Okay. And notice as well how they're using the orf of normal. So the orf of normal activity on a travel to find out how difficult things will be. So if a normal person would be traveling and would expect to walk about a mile away from camp with their friend in a safe situation with a gun if it was a bit dangerous, knowing that everyone else is looking after their luggage, knowing that they're not going to be lost behind, people would do that. Then why can't they do that to go get water if they know that it's there, right? Why not? And that's the kind of estimation. So they're not just using the a'raf sharia. They're not saying that looking at norms in the sharia of what the sharia asks you to do. They're just saying what's normal, right? That's a normal thing to do, right? How is that difficult? Make sense?
So does it mean, like, for example, in a modern scenario, like if you have a car or a motorbike or any other mode of transport that can, like, do you
I don't.
consider the time or the distance?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. There's two things. There's one thing they talk about this on Hajj, is they say that a Bedouin woman will be obliged to go on Hajj on a camel, whereas a city woman wouldn't. Why? Because for a city woman, that's extremely difficult for her to go on a camel. Whereas a Bedouin is like, yes, she does it all the time. So basically, it tells us that difficulty can be relative, right? Difficulty can be relative. So does that mean that you'd have to go further? So for example, there is So let's say an hour. An hour's drive away from here, there's a gas station with water. Am I obliged to drive there? Or do we say the fact that existence of a car is nadir? That's irrelevant. The default picture of traveling in the whole world is humans and animals. So therefore, we're not going to say you have to drive 1 hour off the track. Does that make sense? 1 hour off the road, that would be extreme. Does it make sense?
So it's not just the difficulty. Also, you look at the urf.
Yeah, I don't know. So sometimes we do look at the urf of the people. So at least there on Hajj, that was a scenario where they're not saying what is difficult throughout the world, they're saying what's difficult for you. So I'm not sure. So I don't know how I doubt very much we would say you have to drive for an hour because that could be with Ammar driving, that's 120 miles, right? You can drive 120 miles an hour, so you go 120 miles in 1 hour to go to the gas station, you know, or at least 60 miles. The gas station is 60 miles away. You can get there and back in 1 hour, right? Because it's 60 miles away, right? So that would be a bit extreme to say you have to go there to get water. But I'm not sure. So then the same thing would you say, well, uh, uh, I'm traveling, and for me to walk for 1 hour, that's actually 1 hour, 1 hour back. That's 2 hours, right? So if it's 11 kilometers, half of 11 kilometers, 5.5 kilometers, that's about 3 miles, right? We walk 3 miles an hour, right? So that's an hour walk and an hour walk back to get water. That's 2 hours, you know? But that's when you know that there's water, not when it's maybe. So I don't know. I don't know if it how extent how relative it is. Allahu alam. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then he says, um, so it says, وجب قصده إلا أن خاف على ما مر. غير اختصاص. خرج بالاختصاص والمال المذكور ولا أثر للخوف عليه هنا. Interesting. So when you're talking about going for walking like an hour and walking back, if I went over there and came back, my dog might disappear. Right? That's my ikhtisas. It's not, so dog is not wealth because it's not pure. Right? So that's called ikhtisas. Like it's mine and not yours. That's called, but it's not actually property. Or similarly, if you left, somebody might steal your bag. That bag is worth $5. That is the same kind of money that you would have to pay to buy water. So your fear for losing your dog or your fear for losing this kind of money, يجب بذله في تحصيل الماء ثمنا أو أجرة. Right, that's not an excuse here. So it says in the Hashia, it says وخرج الاختصاص. So you fear for your اختصاص in that kind of distance is not a problem. والمال المذكور فلا أثر للخوف عليه هنا وإن اعتبرنا ثم over there in that scenario كما مر لتيقن وجودها because now you know that there's water there. So what does it mean now? This is like this is like buying water. Okay, in order to buy water, I could I would give up this amount of money. So therefore, giving up the same amount of money or the possibility of giving up the same amount of money is overlooked. فلا أثر للخوف عليه. Right? Doesn't matter. ومن جملة الغير الذي لا يعتبر إلا من عليه خروج الوقت. ولو كان في سفينة وخاف غرقا لو أخذ من البحر تيمم. Right, same thing here. You want a ship or something else. Okay. So that's interesting, right? So you fear, so you are losing money in that you're not spending the money for something, but it is the same amount of money that you would have to spend to get the water. And so the fear of losing it is not an excuse, right? As opposed to you would come back and there's no tent there. Okay, that's not, you're not expected to do that. Okay. ووجود العذر من علة أو فقد ماء والإسلام لما مر في الوضوء إلا في كتابية تيممت من نحو حيض لتحل لمسلم. So you have to be Muslim. Okay, what about you're traveling with your Christian wife and she's making tayammum in order to become halal for her husband. من زوج أو سيد للضرورة. والتميز لما مر في الوضوء. Okay, you have to have tamyiz. If you don't have tamyiz, then then there's the prayer, the wudu, the rituals don't count. The wudu, the ghusl don't count. إلا في مجنونة يم يم مجنون يممت من ذلك. Right. So now you have an insane wife. يممت من ذلك أي من نحو حيض. لتحل لمسلم. Same thing. للضرورة. Same discussion. ونحو من زيادتي. I added the word نحو. وعدم نحو حيض إلا في تيمم. وعدم نحو حيض إلا في تيمم لنحو إحرام. Right? So not being, not menstruating or postnatal bleeding. في تيمم لنحو unless you're doing تيمم in the place of a ghusl that is sunnah. Right? مما لا يختص سنية الغسل له بالطاهر كما بينا. So for example, you're making tayammum on Eid because of the day, right? Or tayammum for entering Mecca even though you're not pure yet. And he says وعدم حائل, there's no barrier بين التراب والممسوح لما مر في الوضوء. Same discussion. وتقدم إزالة النجاسة عن بدنه, right? That you remove the najasa first. ولو من غير أعضاء التيمم من فرج وغيره بخلافه في الوضوء. So in wudu, if you have najasa on you, you can still make wudu. You cannot make the tayammum on you you cannot make tayammum if you have wudu najasa on you. في الوضوء لأن الوضوء لرفع الحدث وهو يحصل مع عدم تقدم ذلك والتيمم لإباحة الصلاة التابع لها غيرها ولا لإباحة ولا إباحة مع ذلك. ها can't read this word. بالنسبة I don't know what it is. What would you have here? ولا إباحة مع ذلك. What do you have, guys, in your books? Oh, فأشبه. So it's like فأشبه it's like making tayammum before the prayer. وقولي عن بدنه عن اقتصار على محل استنجاء والعضو الذي يريد مسحه. Right, so in the Hasha then he says so it says قوله he says يؤخذ من ذلك أنه لو لم يجد ماء يستنجي به أو يزيل به النجاسة صلى فاقد الطهورين. You're not even making tayammum. You pray as if you can't do anything. Right? He says وَالْعِلْمِ بِالْقِبْلَةِ. You have to know where the qibla is. And he says ضعيف. What does that tell us about ijtihad? Well, you can answer that in the group, okay? وَالْعِلْمُ بِالْقِبْلَةِ. Inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. So answer that in the group, okay? What does that tell us about ijtihad? وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.